Shabbat Shalom. We, religious Jews, have a long list of religious obligations which we must perform continuously at a given time, in a given manner. Prayers, candle lighting, making kiddush, observing holidays, and so on. And, of course, we want these performances to be part of an elevating spiritual experience, whether for the individual or the family or the community or the nation. But sometimes the two don't come together. You're performing a certain mitzvah at a given time, and the lack of inner response, let us call it. The question is, what should take priority? And in this question, our great teacher of the past generation, Rabbi Soloveitchik, has, I think, one of the most clearest, most reasoned explanations why it's the performance of the mitzvah which must take precedence. He calls this monistic worship. Now, if you Google monistic worship, you'll come up with a lot of things that may be interesting or not, but have little to do with Judaism or halacha. So I would like in this video just to briefly explain how the Rav views monistic worship and how it connects to the Parsha of Korach. So I'm just going to read you a few passages from the Chumash Masoret HaRav. You see it here, Parshat Devarim, Sefer B'Midbar, wonderful collection of thoughts on the Parsha by the Rav that were collected by people over many years. And I'll just read you portions and maybe add a few explanations. The Rav says that there are indeed two parallel religious orders in Judaism, the objective and the subjective. Deed, which is the objective dimension, actually putting the tefillin in your hand or reciting a prayer, and experience what goes on within you when you do or do not feel some elevation and some connection with higher worlds. They are inseparably united. However important the religious experience is, though, the Rav says here clearly that the religious experience is not the primary gesture. The point of departure must never be the inner subjective experience, no matter how redemptive, colorful, and therapeutic it may be, no matter how great its impact upon the total personality of man. The point of departure must always be the objective, external act. And then here the critical sentences in the Rav. The latter, the external act, does not symbolically express or interpret the experience. The reverse is true. The experience interprets the act. And herein lies the mistake of the subjectivist approach. In other words, it's not that we have some inner experience, some inner longing for God, or some inner calling which we express by saying the blessing, or lighting candles, or making kiddush, or whatever mitzvah it is. It's quite the contrary. We perform the mitzvah in all its details, in all its maybe dry details, that some of which seem to be beyond our comprehension, and the experience, the inner self, interprets this experience and translates it, if we're successful, into a meaningful, therapeutic, colorful experience. And the Rav gives, of course, a number of very clear reasons which we can understand why it has to be so. Religious emotion, like all emotions, are changeable. I can't have my performance of the mitzvah depend on whether I'm in the mood for it or not. Religious experience varies from person to person, and even within the same person from time to time. Am I going to do a different mitzvah because I feel I'm in a different mood, a different mindset, a different spiritual level as far as I can tell? No. And of course, we have to remember that we're talking here about the collective, this set of rules that apply across the board to all Jews everywhere is what binds us together. And this, the Rav said, lies at the heart of the machloket, of the controversy, of the rebellion of Korach and his group, which I will briefly describe in the third and final segment. So, as I said, the issue was this: Moses, the lawgiver, was enforcing what the Rav calls the monistic worship. The fact that there's a monistic, a single set of rules, a single set of rituals, and so on, that apply to all Jews at all times. And Korach was rebelling. He cites in support of his view a midrash that's in Rashi, which says that Moses told Korach, it's the pagans who have many temples, many laws, many priests, whereas we, the Jews, have one God, one ark, one law, one altar, one high priest. And then the Rav adds, monistic worship is constant and not exposed to the winds of change. Now the Rav interprets Korach's rebellion in part in this light, that the famous midrash that says that Korach and his group put on shawls dyed in blue, talit shekulat tchelet, and went to Moses with this sort of infuriating question: Does a shawl that has a four-cornered garment that is made completely of tchelet, does it require tzitzit? Because if Moshe would say, well, yes, of course it does. It makes no difference if it's dyed blue, green, white, or yellow. But of course, the answer would be, well, if one thread of techelet is enough to, take care of a garment of any color, then shouldn't a garment that's nothing but techelet require none? This is interpreted in many ways, but the Rav interprets this as Korach and his group coming and saying, look, we're having this wonderful, complete, holistic spiritual experience, being wrapped up and enthralled in this garment of tchelet. Why do we need to put tzitzis on top of it? And Moshe would say, because that is the monistic worship, the single command, the single mitzvah that applies to all of us. Now, the Rav has had a lot to say about Korach, because the Rav has a general guiding principle that all the rebellions and the bickerings against Moshe up until Korach were simply people, freed slaves who were complaining about the food, complaining about the weather, complaining about the living conditions. And we know, how those things are. You raise a ruckus, maybe you get something, maybe you don't, then things settle down. Korach was the first planned rebellion based on a competing ideology with a clear political agenda. And that's why it was so important to confront it and to crush it. And the Rav takes this and carries it on, because it continues on and on through to our day, because we all know that rituals become sort of rote. You can say your morning prayers without having a single thought beyond what your schedule is for that day and who you have to meet with and what errands you have to do, and it's clear that we would prefer to have our religious acts be complete experiences, so that from the beginning to end our thoughts are completely on the one above and not on worldly matters. But this is extremely difficult to do, almost impossible for humans, and so this can lead to people saying, well, if that's the case, then we'll do without these rituals. They don't mean anything to me. No, that's what kept the Jews together for all these years, all these thousands of years, that we submit ourselves to this same monistic worship that has its roots in the earliest formation of our nation, and we try at each instance, at each event, at each performance, to have our inner being, as the Rav says, interpret the external acts and lead to a therapeutic, colorful, and meaningful experience. Thank you for your attention, and Shabbat Shalom.